So guys, I've taken a trade on a euro dollar. I've gone long at this low right here um, at 7.45 after the 15-minute close. I'm predicting price to come up to at least the Asian high or even take out the highs here, and the highest drawn liquidity is around this buy side liquidity up here. My reason for entry is the fact that we've displaced off this lower time frame, higher time frame buy sell side liquidity. Yes, on Wednesday, made the low of the week on Wednesday, but in this bullish engulfing candle on the Thursday yesterday, and since then I'm predicting price to go up to this buy side liquidity, which is my drawn liquidity, and we have been trading lower, so essentially manipulating the day so far, and it's coming to a point of interest where for me I predict price to continue higher up. We've come into the 50% off this 240 fair value gap, which on the hourly time frame we've come into a fair value gap below a swing low on the 15-minute, which is right there. We've come below this swing, and we've taken liquidity below that swing, and I predict price to find support around these areas and continue higher up. Do I think price is going to continue lower slightly? Yeah, I think this is going to be a bearish close, and then we might see the next candle be a bullish candle with a low wick, and I would think the next candle entry would be a better entry. However, on the 5-minute time frame, I saw this pause before this closed below, and that to me was enough to get into the trade, and I got into the trade because of that. And we also had SMT with EGU at the same time, so GU has been failing to make a lower low, whereas EU has made a lower low on the 15-minute. If you can see right there, we made a lower low right there, and GU has failed to make a lower low clear on also on the 5-minute, even here. So yeah, I'm predicting price to find support. Ideally I was looking at this 1 hour fair value gaps 50% level, which is something I would think price will find support at, and it might find support around there, but I've given myself enough stop breathing room. I've got my stops down at this low below the 50% off the daily time frame inverse fair value gap, which price shouldn't come down to, and if it does then I'll get stopped out. That's fine, I'll reevaluate then. Until then I can let the trade breathe. I was slightly early in my entry, like I was saying, right? This candle was going to be a bearish candle, and we're most likely going to get a candle that takes out that low of that candle and gives us an entry. Well, I wasn't expecting it to be a bullish engulfing candle. I was expecting it more of a slow move up, but even better that we've just printed a strong bullish engulfing candle that took out liquidity below and closed above. So that gives me more hope of price at least coming up to these highs first and potentially come up to these highs. So on the 5-minute, I entered at this candle after this candle closed essentially, and as this candle was printing, I should have waited for price to come into the 50% off this first fair value gap on the 60-minute time frame, which is what I was predicting going into the day. But the way price started to accumulate on this accumulation and then closed below after that was, to me, was like a good sign to go long, and I wasn't expecting price to drop deep today anyway. And like I said, we had this daily time frame inverse fair value gap, and I put my stops below the 50% of that, which I doubt, or I didn't expect price to come into even the start of that inverse fair value gap. So because of that, I was a lot more confident. So let's just see what happened after entry and what gave me more confidence to stay in the trade. So we came down, held that 50% off the 60-minute fair value gap, put in the initial bullish engulfing candle. Then we got this candle which took out the low of that bullish engulfing candle at that 50%, and this is like a statement candle when price is in a direction, right? Put in this strong bullish engulfing candle that closed above these highs, essentially a market structure shift. It came back into the order block, held that order block, then displaced up with a strong bullish displacement, and as price started to come up, to me that is a good sign that it's going to continue higher up. And just before the close of the 1 hour candle, this candle, which closed at this high, right? It took out the high, again took out the high, and it looks like an area to go short. However, as we approach this high, took out that high, dropped, looked like we're going to pull back, maybe come down, don't know. But it comes into the New York Open, again another statement candle, right? Like this candle right here, a low wick candle taking out lows and closing up like a bullish engulfing candle, and then we started to pull back, came back into the New York Open. That candle also happens to be New York Open, and right now we are printing this bullish candle, so that gave me more confidence that it's going to continue higher up. And also on the 1 hour time frame, it always helps me when I go on the 1 hour time frame, because as price started to pull back right on the 5-minute time frame, I was watching the 1 hour time frame, and you can see bullish engulfing candle, just most likely the low of the day, or at least the low of the London session. It shouldn't really come back down to that low. We have this order block as price starting to displace, come down on the 5-minute time frame. I was watching the 60-minute order block and looking at it, price should hold that level, and it does so far. It was only just start of the session. It could go lower, right? But this is what gives me more confidence, which is that we got that order block right there, or potential order block. Can't always be too certain during trading. But yeah, we've got this. Honestly, this could just be a consolidation for a while. And then we can maybe even drop lower into that consolidation, manipulate that consolidation, and then continue higher. Ideally, I want to see price come into this high first, so I can take some partials, and then maybe let the trade run into the high up here. Had I waited for the 50% of that 60-minute fair value gap to be taken, which on the 5-minute, honestly, after seeing it, I was like, oh, I wish I did. I would be up at least 2 hour already, or at least I would be 2 hour up in this level, whereas now it's just 1.4 hour, which is, it's a lot less than 2.2 hour, so almost 0.6% less than what I would make with this trade, which is kind of annoying, but it's what it is. Good trade, just slightly early in the execution. I do expect the next candle to be bullish, right? We've opened, we've come down, essentially manipulations has happened, held that order block, and now it should continue higher. Up to where? I don't know. We'll find out. So I've exited the trade at the start of this structure zone, I'd call it. Instead of waiting for that high to be taken out, I've just taken a target off this level, which is 2.14R, which is good enough. We could easily take out that buy side liquidity and tap into the fair value gap above it, especially the way price is approaching that level at the moment. But 2 hours done, and I'm happy with the trade. So yeah, good trade. I'll do a post review of what happens after this. This is how that candle closed. Luckily, I got out where I got out, because had I not gotten out there and waited for this buy side liquidity to be taken out, so at these highs, I would have had to go through the pain of seeing my profit go from 2% down to like 0.5% with this pin bar. However, I still believe we will reach that buy side liquidity. This is just a pullback in a move up, even if it is a high wick, pin bar that took out liquidity above these highs. I still think we're going to continue higher up. Like, we've essentially gotten a pullback into the New York session, which I'm not going to trade right now, because I'm going to wait for New York Open at least. And I do think if we can, we might come, test these lows and find support there and then continue higher up, or we will just continue high up, and that will give me a channel to take a short at that level. Ideally, I want price to come into the fair value gap, potentially clear out the fair value gap, and yeah, that would be a good level to go short. We've got news at 3 p.m. Ideally, I do want to wait until post news, just to, let's just see how that plays out. This trade was quite similar to the PPI trade I took on Friday 11th of October. Let's just have a quick look at how that played out. It was going against the weekly bias, which was bearish, essentially taking a TGIF kind of trade. So yeah, we came into a daily time frame order block deep in discount right off this range, and held with a pin bar on Thursday, or this doji candle on Thursday. And on Thursday, after price pushed up, it displaced, right, leaving fair value gaps along the way, right there. And yeah, the whole day I was waiting for PPI to come out and take out these lows right here, these lows right above that bullish fair value gap, which price tapped into during Thursday evening, and then continued higher even had a market structure shift, pull back into this low and continue higher. But I wanted price to take out this high, which was a CPI candle. So yeah, waited all day for this low to be taken out. We came down during PPI with this candle, which kind of threw me off at the time. So yeah, essentially we came down to that low before PPI at 7:15, and then at 8:30 PPI candle came out and took out the low. I entered somewhere in the middle after that on a 5-minute candle, which I took a loss, and then I entered again somewhere in the middle and took like up to here or up to this rejection block, structure zone, whatever you want to call it, and made the money back essentially, but because I was impatient. But this is the trade I've taken today is the exact same as this, right? Friday, displaced up on Thursday, left fair value gaps along the way on Thursday, or after the taking out a low, left a swing that for price to come down and tap into above the fair value gap, came and tapped into that fair value gap and found support and continued higher and continued up to this level, and then it drops after that. So yeah, to me this was similar. We had, price displaced up quite strongly. We'd already rejected. Yeah, this was on Wednesday. We were displaced up and left a swing, and then we came down and took out that swing on Thursday. So that exact play happened on Thursday with this candle during news, and then since then we've been displacing up. And again, fair value gap on the 1 hour time frame, and on here we have a swing low on the 15-minute, which is exactly what I was waiting for going into the day, and we did that. And then now we are waiting to see how my market plays out. But the same thing happened on the weekly on the pound dollar. So yeah, we've come into this swing low, previous week's low. What's better is we have come and tapped into the second fair value gap on the weekly time frame, which is a strong point of interest for me because we essentially filled out the first fair value gap and tapped into the second, and the fact that we displaced up yesterday was another good sign. So on the 1 hour time frame, after taking out these lows, we had a market structure shift, and then there you go, 1 hour time frame, we had a swing low above a fair value gap. And not just that, obviously we also have a clear draw on liquidity going into, well, we did yesterday, right? This is a draw on liquidity. So yeah, this was a good trade yesterday. Came down to that swing low above 60 fair value gap. On the 5-minute time frame, it's better. On even 15-minute, it's below this channel. We accumulated just before we made a new low with the sharp bearish candle, which is exactly what I look for anyway. And yes, accumulation, manipulation, and after that manipulation, we've just found support, and ideally we'll probably go up to that high. And yeah, I wasn't sure today how pound dollar was going to play out, but I guess this was the low that was formed because we took out the liquidity off that swing above a fair value gap, and since then we're pushing up now, probably up to these highs, maybe up to these highs. I think this is probably one of my A+ setups where we displace up, especially the day of the week when we've been in a bearish bias, come into a strong point of interest, displace up, swing low taken out above a fair value gap, holds, and then boom, continues higher. So we took out the buy side liquidity on that 240, the swing, which is also the Tuesday's high. During New York session, price came up with this sharp bullish candle that took out liquidity below of this pin bar, essentially trapping sellers, right? Came up, trapped buyers with this bullish engulfing candle, and then just tanked. Yeah, we formed that channel as well with RSI divergence, which is something I was looking for. I got an entry as well, however it's not something I wanted to enter after taking a 2% win on Friday, and not having a really good week. I was okay with not taking more trades because I didn't really want to give away anything that I'd gained today and knock my confidence really, because taking shit trades during the week really knocked my confidence down. And finally taking a good trade, waiting patiently to take a good trade and going into profit. I really didn't want to take any more trades just because of that. Yeah, and then for this trade, I looked for exactly this, which is a accumulation, the accumulation, and then we got the manipulation, which comes into this high right there, right, and then we get this engulfing candle, and normally I would enter on this engulfing candle, which is my entry criteria, and targets would have been this low, wouldn't have gone for, or could have gone for a bit more. And yeah, ideally I don't think I would have been able to hold this trade for too long, especially if I took this high, I would have taken it out and it started to pull back. That would have been just shook me. But yeah, on the lower time frame, better entry anyway. On the 5-minute time frame, we had price came back down, had a market structure shift, and also potentially a unicorn, right? Held this fair value gap. We had a breaker and came into that fair value gap and put in this bearish engulfing candle, which is another sign that price might potentially hold that level. So just for future reference for myself to note that if I'm too scared to take the trade, that straight away. But then yeah, price tanks. Bias on the weekly time frame has been bearish going into the week. We came into a strong point of interest, this sell side liquidity, which also, looking at it, right, we had the daily time frame fair value gap, but we also had this weekly time frame imbalance or inverse fair value gap that was right below that daily time frame sell side liquidity, which price comes into. We're also at that 50% off this monthly time frame order block, so another point of interest. Loads of confluences going into that area. So when price came down to that level on Wednesday and started to displace up, it was likely it was going to find some support and come into next point of interest, which was that daily time frame order block, and also happens to be a sell buy side liquidity on the 240 below an imbalance, which price held with the strong bearish engulfing candle. So going into tomorrow, we've got essentially another unicorn set up here, breaker, fair value gap. Maybe we'll get an order block pulling in and then come down, but I don't know how far it will come down. I wouldn't aim for too low, and I wouldn't aim for trades in the New York session, just London session, probably just a small pullback and down. But yeah, that's the trade review for Eurodollar. Good trade and good trade.